If you are listening to this presentation, I assume you have just read the review of Laissez-faire Capitalism and Utilitarianism that I sent by email and posted in the IR folder under Presentations on the portal. This presentation is on socialism, which has two branches. One is utopian socialism, which will be represented for us by Robert Owen, who was the industrialist we saw in 7.3 that created a model factory called New Lanark Mills. And utopian socialism is represented by the blue square on the left. The second is scientific socialism, which is virtually the same thing as Marxism or communism and will be represented for us by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Friedrich Engels, you might remember, was the industrialist son who described the bad living conditions for workers in Manchester. Scientific socialism is represented by the yellow square on the right. Notice that the middle column, the green square, is the overlap of the blue and yellow squares. The middle column describes the basic concepts of socialism, the characteristics shared by both branches. In other words, utopian and scientific socialism are basically the same thing, but have some distinguishing characteristics that make them different. Let's start by looking at what is shared. First of all, socialism was the third economic ideology, and it was a response to the unjust working conditions and urban poverty that we saw happened in the Industrial Revolution. It was also a response to laissez-faire capitalism. Socialists based their economy on the fact that there would be a representative government. In other words, a government that is equal to the people, not a government that is only a few people at the top. Socialists believed that collectively people, citizens, should have a say about how the economy operates, and that collectively, they would see that laws needed to protect labor as much as they protected the physical property of the industrialists. Socialists, however, think differently about property. Rather than private property owned by a couple of individuals who can exclude others from the use of that property, whether it be the spinning wheel, the tools of the property, the means of production, or the actual profit from the sales of that property. Socialists believe that property should be owned together by people. That's going to have a couple of different forms that we'll get into as we talk about it in class, but they believe in common ownership of property. That's a different thing. Socialists assume that there is an industrial, factory-based economy that creates a surplus of goods and that allows for a specialization of labor. This specialization of labor creates an interdependence between people because the people who are making textiles do that really well and create a surplus. The people who are farming do that really well and they create a surplus, and then they trade for each other's products. And so we're looking at mass production of goods and a very complex interrelationship of people trading for those. Socialists assume that there's a market economy in which goods are traded for some kind of currency. It's not a barter system. And they have a strong belief that labor is inherently satisfying, that people want to work and be productive. Even if, like an example would be for yourselves, even if you may kind of come to writing a paper for school, kicking and dragging, you don't want to do it. But if you were to really have the time and you worked on it, you produce something that you're really happy about, you feel satisfied in some way that you did something good. Socialists would say that that applies to all labor. If you're doing something that you like and you can really invest yourself in that, then you really feel satisfied with the product. So that people are motivated, if they're able to be satisfied and work in that part, they're motivated to work by having an interest in the outcome of their work. But if a person is working on something and then they're just paid a little bit of a wage that doesn't represent the total value of the product, their part of the total value of the product, then socialists would say that workers feel unmotivated to keep working because they're not getting a true representation of the value of their product. So socialists would say that when a product is sold, the profit should be shared in some way by all of them, according to how they contributed to it. And they would say that a capitalist is important, like the capital in a project is important, but it's not more important than the person who's actually assembling the product, so that the profit from the product should be shared by all. And finally, this is a particular societal thing. Socialists work towards creating a classless society. A classless society does not mean that everybody is equal. It means that there aren't classes that lock people in to particular roles in society. People should be able to move around society and not be judged or boxed in by their class.